Okay, we're live. Hello, everyone. Today we are in what are the final days of the Climate Social Forum. For today's sessions we have a keynote speaker, Paola Fiore. She'll make the introduction. Today we're going to talk about social factors, and following we'll have other speakers on climate migration, and there's going to be a parallel session on gender and climate. So Paola Fiore, to you the floor. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Asia and Domenico, and everyone for the organization of this very important event. And I'm very happy to be with you all today. So today we're going to talk about, let's say, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, especially from the point of view of regenerating our economy in connection in connection with a just transition. That is really, really important. Certainly you are very familiar, or at least I hope so, with the UN 2030 agenda that is actually just like a sort of framework for regenerating, restructuring our economic system so that we can create a more equitable and just society by respecting at the same time the environmental resources, and obviously help solving the climate crisis. I would like to start this presentation by sharing with you the vision about the Sustainable Development Goals that has been shared by the former Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon. And I think that this is very important for the development of the discussion. So I would like to invite you to read together this vision. The new agenda is a promise by all leaders to all the people everywhere in the world. It's universal, it's integrated and transformative kind of vision for a better world. It's an agenda for the people to end, first of all, poverty in all its form around the world. It's an agenda for the planet as well, that is our common home. It's also an agenda for shared prosperity, peace and partnership. And it conveys the urgency about the climate action. It is also rooted in gender equality and the respect for all the rights for all the people on Earth. And above all, it pledges to leave no one behind. That is, I would say, the core principle that is about, this new agenda of work. So how can we regenerate, restructure our economy by taking into account more and more, let's say, the social, the human aspects? I would like to invite you to think about these two core questions. First of all, it's very important to understand how we as human can now combine, the components around the climate justice and the one about the social justice, because these two parts, the environmental and the social parts, are now interlinked more than ever. So it's not possible absolutely to, let's say, think about restructuring our economic system, financial system, without considering these other two components that need to be, integrated into a new, let's say, economic vision. And the other key question is about the balance. The balance that we can create, we can foster, let's say, between human, and the environment and the biosphere, the ecosystem, all the natural resources, so that we can guarantee the respect for the rights of all the people, and in particular, I would say, of the indigenous community, the most vulnerable groups, and obviously of Mother Nature. So if we look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, in reality, we can look at these, let's say, sort of framework from different perspectives. Probably you already know that around the agenda, we can see, let's say, about five.
Non sento.
We can see about 5 different areas that are the one about the people, planet, prosperity, partnership, and peace. And if we look at, let's say, each of the Sustainable Development Goals, let's say we have different groups of the goals that deal specifically around this core area. Okay, and this is, let's say, a first perspective that we can use to look at the agenda of the United Nations. Then we have a different perspective that probably is the one that might be a more inspiration so far to us for the purpose of our discussion, because from this other perspective, we can see that the major area of importance should be given, according to the UN new framework, to the biosphere. And in particular to the Sustainable Development Goals that are about the protection of the land, of the water, of clean water, and obviously the action towards the protection of our climate. And then, let's say, in a sort of middle position, we have the Sustainable Development Goals that are about creating a better society. And as you can see from this image, here the goals are more. In total are 8 goals compared to the other area, the one about the environment and the one about the economy, where we have 4 goals per area, per dimension. And then there is, least but not last, the economic area that, as you can see from this image, is, let's say, restricted, compared to the other 2 areas. But in reality, what has happened, in our culture so far, we've been taught, we've been, let's say, we've been taught and we have produced, we have created our products, services, thinking exactly in the opposite way. So let's say we consider the environment, all the natural resources of minor importance, and we put the economy, at the first level of this image, and give to the economy the bigger space. And if we think through the lens of the Sustainable Development Agenda, if we really want to, let's say, restructure our economic system so that it can be also more just, more equitable for our society, but also more sustainable for all the natural resources, we would need, to consider differently also in terms of perspective in relation to all of these goals. And then there's another very interesting way to look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals in order to, create a new economic system. In reality, we can, let's say, put in connection the Sustainable Development Goals in relation to 3 different main areas, that relates, obviously, human development from a personal, individual, or collective, let's say, community perspective. The first area that we can use is about the basic human needs, and within this area there are some of the Sustainable Development Goals that, as you can see, are about the social, the economic, and the environmental area, the 3 main areas that we seen earlier. And then there is a second area of possible development that we can also use to, let's say, regenerate our economy. That is about the foundation of well-being for humans. And this area is, I would say, particularly interesting also from, I would say, a social point of view, because it's also very much connected about education. And in fact, you can see the goal number 4 being the first one, that is really the one about accessing, a basic level of education for all the people. And then we can have a third area of possible development, also in connection with a further thinking around a new economic system that is possibly broader, because it's about the many opportunities and possibilities that the Sustainable Development Goals offer to each of us in terms of, for example, personal rights, but also personal freedom or choices. But also it's very important because it deals about inclusiveness and access to the advanced education. And if we move ahead, as I was saying earlier, we have, let's say, these 5 different areas of, let's say, further development. But I do believe that there's one P that is missing, and this P is about the purpose. Is about the purpose that each of us can have, should have, in relation to the impact that each of us want create, to create a new economic system, and possibly, I would say, also a new concept of sustainable development. And obviously the purpose is very important, first of all, at an individual level, because without, let's say, a personal purpose, some kind of personal transformation, also, all the other changes that are nowadays so much needed within our society are going to be very difficult, to be created. And for sure, we all know, that we are living in a new geological era, just like now the majority of geologists are saying to us. And this era is, let's say, the one where all our human activity have impacted so much on the Earth ecosystem that we literally have changed, the shapes of many areas of our planet. And unfortunately, we are doing all of this at a very, very fast speed. And I would like to share with you this sentence always of Ban Ki-moon that I think it's very powerful. And it gives us, the sense of the sort of I would say really crazy acceleration that we are living, in terms of worsening the climate crisis, the environmental emergency, and now, unfortunately, also the health global emergency. And this kind of acceleration, in reality, has creating a lot of other impacts on our Earth system that actually is, or let's say better, was a sort of a resilient system, being in its own balance. And obviously, what is happening when we, as the humans, somehow change this balance? It happens that the Earth system reduce its resiliency, and for us, the humans, obviously, the increase of having, a future that is not predictable is getting higher. So the more we change the Earth system, and the more, let's say, unpredictable, unfortunately for us, is going to be our future. That's for sure. And these bring us to what are, let's say, the areas where the human activities have already, impacted a lot in terms of health, planetary health. And you might have seen already this image. This is about the planetary boundaries that, unfortunately, the human activity have already bypassed in some of the key areas, in particular, the one about the integrity of our biosphere, that possibly is, together with climate change, the other big area of impact, and the one that need as fast as possible, our consideration. So what might be, let's say, a possible area of development to create a new economic system, that also consider they also consider the social, the environmental aspects. It could be, a sort of, let's say, operating system that is safe both for humanity and also for our planet at the same time. So it could be, let's say, about fostering a concept around planetary stewardship. And when we say planetary, it's not only about, our planet Earth, but it's really about all formal lives on Earth. And obviously, we as human are part of this planetary system. And if we think about the next decade and possibly the other 2 decades up to the middle of the century, we might, let's say, focus our attention and all the sustainable development actions in some specific areas that relates to the planetary stewardship concept. And as you can see from this image, everything is, let's say, each of these areas is very much affected by the level of greenhouse gases emissions. So first of all, we need to, let's say, plan any financial economic system, and let's say try to restructuring it by always considering the necessity to mitigate and adapt in relation to the greenhouse gases level. And there's also another very interesting input that we can use, we can put into our discussion, and it's about the different capitals, different types of capitals that we can use, because obviously our economy has been, let's say, based on the labor, the finance, but we do need to include all the other types of capital. So not only obviously the natural capital, so all the natural resources that our planet offer us, but also the other, let's say, social capitals, for example, or human capitals that are about knowledge, are about education, are about communication, and so on. And the least but not last, if you really want to, let's say, create a lasting impact in our culture, in our society, if you really want to create a transformative process in all the people, we need also to include, the well-being part of the capital. That is about, feeling happy, feeling fulfilled, feeling respected, feeling part on of our society. And now I would like to share with you briefly the core principles of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, because I do believe that these three core principles are also fundamental to regenerate the economic system, you know, in order to respond to the first two questions. So the first one is about universality. As the Sustainable Development Goals belongs to everyone, also, you know, the idea around restructuring our economic system should be respectful of the universality principle as well. Then the second principle is the one about the integration, as all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are necessary to one another, you know, to achieve the overall 2030 UN agenda. At the same time, if you really want to, let's say, regenerate our economic system in terms of creating also environmental and social benefits, we do need to consider this principle, you know. Otherwise we wouldn't move forward. And finally, there's the third principle, the one that I do believe is very much connected to the 6P, the one about the purpose, you know, and the principle of transformation is really important if we really want to, let's say, change our economy, our society, and our culture. And it's first of all about individual, personal transformation. And this is a necessary in order to create also a collective cultural transformation among all the other people. And to conclude, what are, let's say, the main sustainable development goals that we might focus on, let's say, more, you know, if we want to foster the discussion around how to create or regenerate our economic system. First of all, we do need to do our best to end poverty. And unfortunately, poverty is one of the main area, I would say the biggest area that has not been solved, you know. And obviously this is much relating to the second sustainable development goals, that is about ending hunger, you know, giving proper food, assuring food security to all the people, and obviously creating an agriculture that can be really truly sustainable by respecting all the natural resources. And then we have the goal about the health. We cannot really thinking about restructuring our economy if we don't include within, you know, the new system all the aspects that assure a healthy lives together with a healthy planet. And unfortunately, this pandemic that we're all still living is really, you know, the proof of what we are saying. And then there are the other goal about the education that is fundamental. Because it is about promoting, you know, a lifelong learning for all the people, And then, as you might recall from the vision that I read at the beginning, another fundamental part is about empowering women and girls. This is very much important because this is about gender equality. And if we want to respond to the first question, how can we combine the concept about climate justice and social justice? So obviously, we need to consider the core component about gender equality also if we want to restructure our economic system. And finally, there are other two goals, the number 8 that is specifically about creating and promoting, you know, an inclusive, sustainable economy that is about prosperity, that can assure decent conditions of work for everyone, give, let's say, a proper employment to everyone. That's another important part. And finally, it's important to, you know, thinking about a new economic system that from the inside is able to reduce all sorts of inequality in relation, to all the countries around the world that apply the Sustainable Development Goals. And as you can see from this final slide, and as I said earlier, each of these goals is fundamental. But if we really want to achieve the Sustainable Development Agenda in the next decade, we do need to consider the importance of all of these 17 areas of development. Also in relation to a new idea of economy that can respect our planet and our society. And I conclude my presentation. I hope it's in time. I think so. And thank you for your participation.
Thank you, Paola, very much for, yes, this wonderful presentation. I was waiting for some questions. I do have one that I think can conclude possibly, and then we can move to Gramenos. And so you demonstrated how many of these goals are obviously connected. So it often seems a little difficult of why they're not necessarily applied or necessarily understood, even at political level. Why do you think that policies sometimes don't really focus at improving some of these goals that are so important to various communities?
Yeah, that's a great question, Asia. I think everything relates to the integration principle. I think that policy finds difficult to, to see the interconnection, to see the interdependence of each of some of these Sustainable Development Goals, and is missing the bigger picture. And in reality, the agenda of the United Nations really give us a sort of framework, that in reality can be really a sort of a bigger picture where we can find all the let's say the potential solutions for the 17 area of development. Yeah, so I do think that the integration part is the most important of all.
Which, yeah, because if you apply what you're trying to do, things could definitely improve at all levels. So yeah.